This next thing doesn't seem like the current thing that's happening in Tallahassee regarding Mike Norvell's job, but it is interesting. I saw it tweeted, and Tim Brando, who was nice enough to come into the studio years ago when I was at Clear Channel and sit down and do a long form interview with me. And, he's Tim is what he is. He's a bit of an egomaniac, and I think he would admit to that. He's also, a long-standing and well-respected play-by-play announcer in college football, and he does have the mind of a historian. I saw where Richard Condon tweeted and Brando retweeted, and it came with video. 46 years ago yesterday, the future of LSU football changed forever. LSU AD Paul Deitzel had already offered Bobby Bowden the LSU head coaching job. After the Noles beat LSU at LSU 24-19, Bobby Bowden said, if we can beat LSU in Tiger Stadium, we can build something really, really special in Tallahassee, Florida, and turn down the job. Brando retweeted that moment of Bowden being carried off the field after a 24-19 win and wrote, forever changed the coaching stories for the generation. Interestingly, a handful of years later, Bobby thought Alabama football was going to hire him, and when they didn't, the Tide went through one of its most difficult periods in its program's history. And it talks about the revolving door and the iconic coaches, and then the two of them go back and forth discussing coaches and programs and the uniqueness of college football. I often talk about the biggest difference for many of the years that we covered college football, and it did not resemble pro football, both good and bad talking points there, or aspects of the game, was the fact that coaches were characters in college football in a way that they weren't in the NFL. And coaches, if you were lucky enough, as Florida State was, to get an iconic coach, somebody who helped tell the story of college football and change the fortunes of Florida State, then you were in the money. You were set because you could safely assume after a number of successful seasons that you could stockpile talent if you were in certain areas and you had one of those characters of the game. And most assuredly, Bobby Bowden was one of those. A fatherly figure to many of the players he recruited, a grandfatherly figure to some as well years later, and somebody who was fully capable, because it was earnest and real, of walking into a living room of a kid in a rural setting or a downtown metropolis. He could walk into anybody's living room and make people feel comfortable about where they were about to send their kids. And I don't think recruiting works that way anymore. And I certainly don't think that coaches drive the bus the way they once did for these programs, these powerful programs. People who are committing these days to Alabama, I don't think are giddy and over the moon, and parents are laying there resting peacefully at night because they committed to Kalen DeBoer. I don't think it's that way for Ryan Day. And I certainly don't think it's going to be that way for whomever it is that Florida State hires. So the search is different now, and the role is different now for the coaching not only practice, but also the administration and the way they think about how they have to go about the business of doing business in the world of big-time college football, NIL, unlimited transfers, etc. So I wonder, again, if that's something that Florida State's administration, I certainly hope, is thinking long and hard about. You guys on the Smash talked about it last night. We've kicked it around on the JCS. We've kicked it around on Seminole Headlines. We've kicked it around on the message boards of Warchant.com. Just what do you have to do to win moving forward in college football? Where does that money need to go? What is prioritized moving forward in the realm of college football and your head coaching position? And I think that's what makes being in limbo frustrating now, because it is multi-pronged. You're worried about, whether or not you can get the candidate that you want. You're worried about moving forward. You're tired of being stuck in limbo. You're tired of having games on the horizon that do not spark your interest because there's a much larger issue to deal with. Even if you are to win those games, and losing those games at this point don't seem to matter as much anymore either. I get all of that, but I do hate the fact that when I sit back and think about the direction and what they're going to do, I find myself a little flummoxed there too. I'm in agreement with you guys that you don't need to spend $10 million. You don't need to spend $12 million a season. I guess if you're going to get a Lane Kiffin, maybe you would. I don't know. That's not what I would do. Yeah, if Kirby Smart was to reach out via Jimmy Sexton and say, hey, Jimmy, let me reset the number here. Let me restart the clock. Things have gone well here at Georgia. We're not out here sucking after all. We are winning games, not in a dominant fashion the way we once did early on in my time here. And I'm still beloved, but I sense we're on the precipice of something going south. And I'm tired of people being ungrateful for the dominance that I've been able to bring to Athens. Let me go to Tallahassee, where I was once a GA, and get those guys righted. Let me go, Jimmy. I'll take it for 12 mil per. Tell him I'll do it. Would you do it? Yeah. For Kirby, I would. Anybody else? I think the list stops there. I think it's Kirby. Maybe for me, it's Dan Lanning. Maybe. Because he's young. But it may just be Kirby. You got anybody else on that short list?
I don't know that I do. Honestly, last night James Franklin's name came up, and I said, James Franklin at a price point, absolutely I would take. But if you're saying James Franklin is going to go open market value because there are so many suitors this time around, this is where I think if there were 2 or 3 job openings, major job openings for James Franklin to choose from, I think you could take a lesser amount of money and your agent would tell you, yeah, that's fine. Make Penn State wear it a little bit. This is all good, and get yourself to a good situation. But given that this is a buyer's market, if you're the coach, man, look at all these opportunities that are in front of you, potential opportunities, major universities. And we're not done yet if you're talking about the jobs that are actually open versus the ones that are perceived to be coming open pretty soon, which could include us and Auburn adding to the list. My God, you would be foolish not to fully vet this situation, not to run up the tab as to what the final number is going to be for you as a James Franklin, or if Lane wanted to hit the open market, which I don't even know that he will. But James at $6 million, $7 million, yeah, all right, I'm in for James Franklin. James Franklin at 12 or 13, it's a total inefficient use of the money. My whole thing where I'm sitting at right now is we know this is broken and we know this can't be fixed. We know that Mike basically thought he was done, and he was fried and cooked after the game against Stanford. They can smell that. They can sense that in the locker room and the coaches' offices. It doesn't work anymore. Be done. Be done. What are we waiting on? The next thing is the next thing. It's going to be very interesting to see how the administration decides where they want to go next. Again, my frustration would be that you can devise that plan after you fire Mike. You don't have to bring him back for this week. But we'll see. Maybe it's something where when it's all said and done, there's a better structured buyout. And for whatever reason, Mike Norvell decided that he wanted to do Florida State a little bit of a service on the way out, which is to make it a little bit more palatable, give them more liquid funds to work with in the short term to be able to go get their next head coach. I wouldn't put it past Mike Norvell, and that's a compliment to Mike Norvell, the person, because he certainly doesn't have to do that based upon the contract that was constructed and written. It just feels to me as though this could be one of the final waves in which an unproven at the highest level head coach is going to command 8 figures per year. I don't think we're going to be seeing this very much more beyond this cycle for guys who haven't brought home a national championship.
Yeah.
Dudes who have won a national championship or been to the Final Four or they've been to the championship game 2 or 3 times. Okay, maybe you would pay that kind of money. But if you have a resume of a James Franklin, I don't know that that's going to command 12 moving forward in, say, the 2029 coaching cycle or the 2030 coaching cycle. I think it's going to start coming back to earth a little bit here because we're going to find out that coaches are very replaceable. And you don't have to have the top 3 or 4 in the moment because the top 3 or 4 in the moment is going to be different 3 years from now based upon the parity that's growing within the sport.
Well, the current coaches that have won a national championship all seem to be secure in their jobs, right? I mean, Kirby's not going anywhere. I guess Dabo could be going somewhere at this point, but it does, and it doesn't seem very likely. Obviously, Ryan Day's not leaving Ohio State. Everybody else, that's it, right? Those are the only guys that have won a national championship.
Right. Yeah. Other than Jimbo, who's on the market, what do you think about Jimbo? Would you?
Oh, good God. But, it's funny. I was reading the odds opened up, by the way. You can bet on these things now. And when LSU fired Brian Kelly, that gig is being bet on in certain outlets. You can't do it on the Hard Rock, but James Franklin ranks as the fourth best odds to be the next head coach at LSU. Doesn't seem likely that they would hire James Franklin. It's interesting to me that if you read in Virginia Tech circles, they are pushing hard for James Franklin. They feel like they could get, if they push hard right now, after having fired Brent Pry, that they have a chance to get James, like an angry, motivated James on the cheap might go to Salem, might go to Blacksburg and coach Virginia Tech. Most people, of course, think that's poppycock, that is wishful thinking for Virginia Tech fans everywhere. And it is wishful thinking, because I can tell you this, if James Franklin, big if, is a candidate for Florida State, well, then good night, Virginia Tech. There's no chance you would go to Virginia Tech over going to Florida State. Zero chance.
Yeah, even with Virginia Tech committing $250 million to its athletic department over the next few years, and that's something that they committed just before they made the move on their recent head coach.
Yeah, they got out in front of that and made that announcement. We brought that up on the air the day that it happened. We were like, oh, well, nice of Virginia Tech to announce to the world that they are about to get serious.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think they're scrambling because they know 2030 is coming and they need to make themselves pretty for that moment. That's the one good thing of being over leveraged, is that, these things have been built at Florida State. I mean, they
can't unbuild them.
Yeah. Can't unbuild them. Don't love the situation that puts you in terms of financial flexibility in the now, because you have to make another move. But they're here. Those things have happened. Whereas Virginia Tech has just committed to it. Florida State has just constructed it. Very different places along the line. And then also you throw in the obvious things like relevance the last 20 years. Florida State's been inconsistent, but far more consistent than Virginia Tech has been, certainly in the last 10 to 12 years. And then the recruiting footprint. DMV area is nice. Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, far better for talent. Now, we'll see. I wonder if Florida State is interested in James Franklin. The thing to me would be is you would want to lock that up now. You wouldn't want to wait. If you could possibly lock that up now, you would want to, maybe that's what they're thinking, is if they were to land a candidate like him, this is speculation, personal speculation, you're trying to pull off the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark, trying to do the old switcheroo really quickly and make it happen almost in concurrent press releases that he's gone, he's in. But I wonder, that's another half of the equation of what does the administration do? How do they structure things moving forward? The front end of it is, at what point do we just understand that this ain't working and you might be better off in the short and the medium term if you say goodbye to Mike?
It's very interesting to me. We're sitting here kicking around James Franklin's name, right? We're asking ourselves, would James Franklin be somebody Florida State would be interested in? I have said before that I would be interested in James Franklin because I think you would get a motivated, angry James Franklin. You might be able to get James Franklin, on the cheap relative to what he would ordinarily cost. The problem is I keep going back to fit. First of all, I got no problem with the age. I actually think he's the perfect age to be a head coach. He's 53. And 53 to me has always been a great age for head coaches. You've been around long enough to have made a bunch of mistakes and learned from them. You've gained some wisdom through that process. You're still young enough to have the energy to commit to the job every day and to bust your ass in recruiting and do the things that are necessary. And you're not so far removed from being young. I mean, you're no longer young. You are not young at 53. I know that. But that's part of the allure here, is that I don't want a guy that's 30. I want a guy that's 50, 52, 53, because he's young. He's old enough to remember, and he's made mistakes and learned from them, but young enough to have energy. And so the next question becomes, is he a fit? I'm going to keep doing this. Is he a fit? He is from, for those that don't know, Langhorne, Pennsylvania. So that's why Penn State went after him, is he's a Pennsylvania guy. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. He's a smart guy, a learned man, Tom Lang. He's had his troubles in the big games, but he's won a lot. He's won a lot of football games. His record is very good. His career record, he made something out of nothing at Vandy. Obviously, he was very successful at Penn State. He wasn't a failure at Penn State. He just failed to beat Ohio State and Michigan, like with any degree of consistency. Well, I mean, frankly, welcome to the club, rest of the Big Ten. I mean, nobody does. So I have criticized him for losing big games. I've especially criticized him for losing big games at home. He's lost way too many of these games at home. And that is a, 100,000 seat venue. Those people care deeply. It is a home field advantage. College football has that. Pro football doesn't. A lot of sports don't. College football has an advantage at home. Unfortunately, our current coach loses at home a lot too. That's very frustrating. He loses this Saturday on homecoming to Wake. That may be the last opportunity he has to lose home games for us.
Yeah.
That may be it.
I like how you phrase that as opportunity too, because that's kind of fitting. The one thing that if I was pitching for Florida State and I was really trying to find a differentiator and having a real conversation that, of course, is confidential and off the record versus LSU or Florida, if you're saying, why don't I take those jobs, guys? Why take your job? Do you realize the length of the runway we have here in Tallahassee for you versus Florida and LSU? We're going to be very patient with you here relative to the expectations in Baton Rouge and Florida. So if
Got no choice.
If you're looking for a long-term opportunity to, yes, still you want to shoot for the stars, but make a couple mistakes and not be immediately on the hot seat for it, that is the reality in Tallahassee. I don't know that is going to be the reality in Gainesville and LSU because of the nature of what we've been through the last 10 years, because of what we've built in the last 3 years from a facilities perspective. You have a lot more runway here and time to get your ducks in a row and to succeed. And what makes me angry, and I'll take the emotion out of it, is what we be asking James Franklin to do is the bare minimum in the first year or two to get it to 8-9 wins, which is what we were begging Mike to do this year, and it seems like he's going to fail at after starting 3-0. So you're asking for the baby steps. Again, we were asking for baby steps this year. We're not getting the baby steps that we needed. We got one giant step, and then we haven't moved backwards. That's what his existence would be here. In LSU, they'd expect SEC West competition immediately. Yes. Florida is so starving for success because they didn't have a 12-0 run a couple of years ago that they would be expecting a huge dent in the SEC hierarchy immediately. That would be my pitch. That's the best way I can differentiate Florida State from those other schools is we're going to give you a little bit more time here. We're going to be a little bit more reasonable.
The other part of that, Tom, frankly, and I've talked to industry insiders on this stuff and people who represent agents and the like, and they have all said that this job is far better than the Paul Feinbaums of the world believe it to be. And the reason that coaches who are at the Big Two really look at a place like Florida State and rank it very highly on their list is the path. Tom. You can get to the playoff a lot easier in the ACC than you can the Big Ten and the SEC. I can go make big-time money, be in a recruiting-rich area, fertile grounds of the country. To me, it's a great job for that reason because the other part is that you are now going to guide Florida State into the Big Ten and the SEC. So you have a runway as you lay the groundwork for success, an easier path to the playoff to rekindle the magic and the cachet of Florida State football. You're seen as a conquering hero just by being good in the ACC, for goodness sake, which isn't even what it once was because Clemson's not any good. And so you have a chance to win a lot of games, make a lot of money, recruit real talent, real commitment from the university in terms of facilities and buy-in. All of their NIL money goes to football. And in 3 years, you are in the Big Ten or you're in the SEC. So you've built it up. You get to hit the ground running. It's a great job. It's a great job. It's not the job it once was, but it's a great job if you're one of these elite coaches who just lost their job in either the SEC or the Big Ten, or you're out there as an up-and-coming superstar in the industry, and you aren't quite at the level where you're going to be asked by Florida or Penn State to take their job. And I hate to say that as a Nole, but that's kind of where we're at, and I think that puts you in the top 5 or top 7 jobs that are available. You're not LSU. Nobody is. Florida's not LSU. A lot of people don't think Florida's Penn State. That's fine. You don't have to be the best job in America. Can you be a top 10 job in America? Can you be a top 15 job in America? Florida State's certainly that.
I don't think there's any question about being top 10 or top 15. It's just in this moment, in this snapshot, what are you looking for? Are you looking for runway? Are you looking for instant access to all things the way that Jimbo looked at Texas A&M? Instant access to everything, liquidity, investment. We're not there right now.
No, we're not there.
You have the facilities, you have rev share, and you have a little bit of NIL. If you're a big name, you're going to get more NIL instantly, and you get something close. But if you're looking for a situation where you're going to have a lot of wiggle room to build it the way that you want to build it,
sure,
and you're going to have, yes, you're right, a path to success in the immediate. Not as much funding as SEC or Big Ten, but you're going to be making it into that Super League or the Power 2 when this thing gets reconfigured. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this situation because it's in the era, Ira called it in a column recently, the microwave era of college football. I think you would call it the air fryer era of college football. This is a conventional oven that's really good and high quality. You got time to preheat the sucker, and you got time to cook the meal. And it's going to take a little longer, but it's going to come out beautifully if you execute it right.
Yeah. My only question about Franklin isn't whether or not I would want him. I would. It would just be, is he a fit? And you won't know that till you sit down with him.
Yep.
You got to interview. You got to talk to a guy.
And at what price point? It's so critical.
Although that to me is a given. You're right. If I'll take the job for $7 or $8 million per, I'd probably do it. If life's a little crazy, maybe you're tired. I'm tired. I stayed up watching that baseball game last night, so I'm very tired. But if life's been crazy for you and you're looking for a way to unwind, why not try Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies? It's a natural way to relieve aches, discomfort, stress, sleeplessness. I have that situation in the Cameron household, a struggle to sleep. It'll tell you that's the side effect of getting old and worrying about everything under the sun because of your kids, but it is. When you need to get that sleep, Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies, good times, good times. You're off and resting and feeling better, whether that's stress or discomfort, need a little relaxation, if you will. Why not try it? All products third-party lab tested, USDA organic to ensure safety and purity. Right now, Jeff Cameron Show listeners, you can save 30% on your first order. Head to cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use code warchant at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/warchant. Use code warchant. There you go. If you are listening and watching on the pod, or I should say the YouTube feed, Warchant, thanks for doing that. Warchant.com, Warchant TV. So I'll say it here. I didn't talk about it before. We haven't had a chance. So what inning did you go to bed? When did you call it a day? When did you decide I can't do this anymore? This isn't going to be healthy?
Yeah, it was actually relatively early. It's after Ohtani hit the home run to tie it. I wanted to see if there was going to be a response half inning, a bounce back half inning. And I felt like it was going to go into the night. Now, did I think it was going to go as far into the night as it went? No. But once I saw that it was going down that path, and the Monday night football game was of no consequence at that point, it was decided.
A dud.
Yeah, I said, all right, we'll see. If this was game 5 or game 6, I 100% would go the distance here, but I got to make a decision on a Monday night. It's game 3. Important game. Feels like it might be the series, but I got to call it. So I did.
It felt very important. I don't know. The Jays are resilient. They are tough, and they can mash. So maybe it's not over. It did feel like it could be after the Dodgers got the walk-off from Freddie Freeman. For the listeners, I stayed up. I couldn't. We have rules about these things. Playoff hockey, for example, Tom, there are rules about if you make it through the last intermission, like after the third period ends and it's going to overtime and there's an intermission, if you're still up and you start to engage, I feel like the rule is you have to you have to see that overtime through, if not the rest of the game. You're not allowed to turn it off at that point. If you're going to turn it off, you had to make a decision to turn it off at the end of the third period and say, all right, it's overtime. This is going to be great. I don't have it in me. This could go for another hour and a half. I can't do this. I'm going to bed. But once you commit to the start of the overtime period, what kind of person are you that just turns off the middle of an overtime period? You can't do it. You got to watch. So I actually oddly said to myself at the start of the 12th inning, because it was already late at that point, and I was doing the bargaining thing with myself. I was wrestling. My wife said, I'm going to bed. The kids had gone to bed. My dogs were asleep. It was just me in what I call the TV room. It's me and the 100-incher. It's just watching baseball, loving this. Like you said, the football was ass. I had stopped watching that hours ago, and I'm locked into this game that had so many ups and downs and so many crazy moments and so many base runners left on and walks and big moments and just craziness that I thought, well, all right, I'm up. I'm gonna do this. I began to regret that decision right around the 14th or 15th inning, and I thought, it's really late. You're gonna be up at 5:30 no matter what. It's now, 2. This isn't good. This is starting to feel like you're getting 2 hours of sleep tonight if you continue down this path, which turned out to be a real thing. But I saw it. I watched every glorious minute, and that game was riveting. The Dodgers in extra innings, if they had lost this game, would be punching their own testicles today when they finally awoke, because they had so many chances. And in that way, it's best that the Dodgers won because they had more shots at it. They put themselves in a better position to win more frequently. If the Jays were going to win, they needed to win in 9 innings. When they took the lead on that great slide from Guerrero with the bang play at the plate with the hand, and all of that, that was riveting. I will say, in a game that goes this long, it's hard to take shots at managers. But I find myself doing this more and more. I know what the rules say and what the sort of unwritten rules are. If you have opportunities to win a game and you need to pinch run for a better offensive player because you've got a shot to do it here, oftentimes managers will just say, I got to do this. But, man, if you play the long game, John Schneider really weakened his lineup throughout the course of this game. He took out Kirk. He took out Bo Bichette for pinch runners. And this was after Springer was hurt and had to come out of the lineup. So 3 of your better hitters are gone. And, what happens is you're watching these extra innings go by, Tom, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has to take 4 at-bats from the cleanup spot. That's ass. You can't have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in the cleanup spot for the final 9 innings of the game. I mean, every time he came up, it pissed me off. I started to resent Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who I don't have a problem with and rather enjoy as a player. He was he was with the Pirates all year before going back to the Blue Jays. He just can't hit a lick. And I'm sitting there like, oh, my man, did we really have to lift Bo Bichette? Did we really have to lift Alejandro Kirk? I mean, anyhow, I'm sure he's feeling that one today, but I've buried the lead. Freddie Freeman is 105 years old and always makes great contact. Before hitting the home run to dead center, he had several balls go to the track last night. And I guess I read online, Tom, that, and I forget this out in LA, we know we were there for the Rose Bowl, but the temperature drops like 25 degrees once it gets to be late, and the ball just doesn't travel. He had multiple balls that if this were a day game would have ended the game.
Yeah, I would say that if I'm a Dodgers fan, because I watched the extended, I figured, you know what, I'll spend 20 minutes on the extended condensed version of the game this morning. And if I'm a Dodgers fan, I think by the time we get to about the 14th or 15th, I'm saying, well, it doesn't matter. We're just going to hit this to friggin' Varsho.
Yeah.
It's going to be hit to Varsho. And a lot of these catches that the guy makes are of the routine variety. He's got time, even if it's on the track, to go there, settle, wait, and catch the ball. There's a couple of them that are actually nice, and or a hat tip to the analytics department, the spray charts, because he's positioned so well. Specifically, a couple of them in left center, where you say, wow, that's a good job of scouting. If he's playing straight away, that is ball game. But if I'm a Dodgers fan, that is a name that if we had lost was going to haunt me. I'm like, well, here's an important moment. I bet it's going to get hit to Varsho in center field. And that's where a couple of places, a couple of those at-bats you're talking about with Freddie Freeman, of course, it went to Dalton Varsho. And then finally, I'm sure they're saying, don't catch it, you piece of crap Varsho, as it's hit to deep center.
Yeah.
And the wall stops him. I think he would have gotten there if there was no wall to catch the ball, but the wall
he would have got there. He was playing deep because you always play deep with Freddie. And absolutely, he would have got there. He had time to set up shop. He was getting ready. Yeah, so good for Freddie Freeman, one of the great guys of the game, and he now has just endless videos to watch as an old man of him doing heroic things, but not as heroic as the greatest player to ever live, Shohei Ohtani, whose records will never be broken. I'm just going to tell you now, they will never be broken. That was and continues to be an insane set of circumstances in the postseason for Shohei Ohtani. His second home run, which was a meatball middle, and up. Like, let's not do that, dumbass. Anyhow, that's a mistake pitch. He doesn't miss him. And he hit that to left center out of the park. And, that's his second home run. That made him the first player with 3 multi-home run games in a single postseason ever. Kind of cool, by the way, just to point that out. You ever notice that? Every time I talk about Ohtani, I'm telling you about something he did that nobody's ever done, ever. Like, they've been playing baseball for 400 years, and nobody's ever done it. So that's him again. Also, his 2 homers, his 2 doubles, and 4 straight intentional walks afterwards, along with a final unintentional walk that looked pretty much like an intentional walk, makes him the first player to reach base nine times in a World Series game. He was the first to ever reach base 7 times in a World Series game. He was the first to ever reach base 8 times in a World Series game. And he is certainly now the most decorated postseason award winner seemingly ever. I mean, Big Papi's got a lot of numbers in the postseason, but damn, if Ohtani stays on the Dodgers, he's going to be back in the playoffs again next year. He's going to continue to shatter records. Only 2 other players in the history of baseball have ever been on base 6 times in a World Series game in the history. And he just did it 9 times.
Yep. Yeah, he went 9 for 9 last night. His slugging for the series is .811 through 3 games, which is higher than Betts and Freeman combined behind him. Think about that. Higher than your next 2 future Hall of Famers combined. But he did get caught stealing, so he sucks. And he is the starting pitcher tonight, correct? Isn't he on the hill?
He is the starting pitcher. Speaking of pitching, the Dodgers used 10 pitchers last night, and the Jays used 9. The Dodgers, had the game continued, were going to have to throw Yamamoto again. They told him to get up and get ready. Think about that. The man just pitched a complete game for the second time. He just did it the other night. He just did it. They were going to throw him back out there. Both teams were completely out of relief pitching. They were all going to have to use their starters.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, that's what playing 2 baseball games that count for 1 is going to do to you. And that's where, Ohtani's game 1 last night was epic. His game 2 was epic for a different reason because of all the walks. The one thing that gets lost in the shuffle early on in this game, and I won't stay on it too long, but it's the ball 4 to Bichette, ball 4 to, let's see, who would that have been? Maybe Varsho at the plate. Mm-hmm. And it's a 3-1 pitch, and it's called strike 2, and it's well out of the zone, and Bichette assumes because it missed by a mile that it is ball 4, gets caught in a rundown between first and second.
Yeah.
Look, that doesn't have any bearing really on the discussion of this game because it goes another 5 hours after that play. But we have the answers there. That'll never happen again in a World Series because next year you will have the challenge system, and the manager will understand that, well, I've got to burn that challenge right now because it just cost me an out on the base pass. It'll be first and second, one out instead of 2 outs, nobody on with a 3-2 pitch. I mean, that changed win probability and run scoring probability immensely. And I hope that we don't have too many more of those elements ever again because we have the correct answer. We have the correct answer in that moment. And all you got to do is apply the correct answer. And you don't have a situation like that where if I'm a Toronto fan, I'm saying, well, does it ever get to that point? You can't live in those moments. But it was an annoying thing that I saw early on in the game where I said, God almighty, we know that is wrong. Just like a safer and out call. And it cost a lot in that big situation. But the biggest talking point was, of course, Ohtani, because he didn't just go 4 for 4 with a couple of bombs and a bleeder and an infield single. Of course, he hit 2 doubles in addition to the 2 home runs. So 4 extra base hits, 5 walks, 9 plate appearances, reaches safely all 9 times.
Yeah, they asked Snyder about it after the game as to whether or not, did you give any thought to that strategy moving on as the game went on? Because, of course, you're walking Shohei Ohtani to get to Mookie Betts, to get to Freddie Freeman. And that's on the surface, you would just, and in a couple of those situations, Tom, obviously in the extra innings, you're walking him as the winning run.
Yeah. Yep.
You're putting the winning run on base. You're just like, well, let's put the winning run on base. It's not like he's slow. Like there's a good listen. You caught him because he fell off the bag the one time. If he hadn't fallen off the bag,
it looked like he got pushed off the bag. But yeah,
it was a smart move, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you caught him because he fell off the bag. You didn't catch him because you threw the ball in a way that beat him to the bag. He beat you to the bag. He just fell off the damn bag. My point is that if you keep walking the winning run, at some point he is going to steal successfully second base. He's Shohei Ohtani. He might steal third. I mean, he's that dude. So that's how good he is. It reminds me very much of the way Barry Bonds was treated at the end of his career. Mm-hmm. He was intentionally walked with the bases loaded to walk in a run because the thought of a grand slam or a 3-run double or whatever was always in the mind of a manager. And he's like, it's a 2-run game. I'll give up the run. I don't care. Get me to Jeff Kent. I'm not dealing with this.
Well, yeah, this is where, look, they've all taken turns in that lineup. It is an extremely difficult lineup to navigate. We all understand this. But we also understand that after Freddie Freeman, there's a drop-off there in expectations. I think Teoscar is the next place in the lineup where you go, oh, God.
Oh, yeah, he's good. He's a great hitter. He's a terrible fielder, but he's a good hitter.
Correct. But, Will Smith runs hot and cold. Max Muncy runs hot and cold. Tommy Edman, hot and cold. Now, when they're hot, they're insane.
I like me some Will Smith, man. I wish the Pirates had Will Smith. That dude's a businessman.
He is.
He's out there working.
He's a good approach too. But it's just there is a canyon between the greatness of the top 3 in the order and then some of these hot and cold players. Like, frankly, if you're trying to stack it at the top and protect Ohtani in a weird way from being intentionally walked, you might want to go Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, Teoscar, Enrique, and that's your top 5. But I think what the manager is thinking in that moment is, all right, it's not ideal, of course, that we have to face Betts and Freeman. But if I can get past those 2, if I can just clear this top 3, then I've got a fighting chance against above average hitters instead of trying to go through 3 straight Hall of Fame hitters. And I also think you wouldn't think about walking Ohtani as much if Freeman was directly behind him in the lineup.
Right.
Not that Mookie Betts isn't a special player. Again, there's a bit of a difference there. Like if you're categorizing, I fear Ohtani, Betts, or Freeman, who's the guy I fear the most and the least? The easiest part of that would be the person I'm least afraid of is Mookie Betts. That is super simple.
Yeah, and Mookie has fallen off. Mookie Betts, who has been hurt and started the year by losing 25 pounds and strolling to the plate at a cool $150, is not the guy that he's been in the past. He just isn't. Now he is going, we'll see if he bounces back from this year. I think this has been a tough year on his body. They've had him do a lot of different things. Obviously, he's so versatile. You play him in the outfield, you play him at shortstop, you play him at second base, you can play him in center field, you can play him right field, left field. He's an amazing player and an all-time great player. And I like Mookie Betts. There's a lot to like about him. He's a good team guy. But he's not the player he was. So you're right, is my point. I'm I'm going after Mookie Betts because I don't think he's going to hit the ball out of the park.
Correct. And this is where I think Big Papi was calling for Shohei to get flexed down to clean up. Like, no, all you're doing is guaranteeing more intentional walks because who's hitting behind him? Muncy? Like that's a even easier thing for the manager to do is let's just say you retire the side in order in the first and he's leading off the second. All right, runner on first, nobody out. Let's go retire these bozos.
Right. And they're all good players, but yeah, I understand your point. Yeah.
Relative to exactly.
Yeah, relative to that freak. Yeah. Well, there have been plenty of times this year where Shohei has let off. I mean, he's had many games where he's been the leadoff hitter.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd continue having him in the leadoff because it makes that decision tougher. It's easier if you put him in the cleanup spot. I think Ortiz is wrong.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, fun game. Baseball does what it does, and the Magic was in the air last night. The game is of great importance, obviously. Series tied at 1 apiece, and we get this marathon of a game, and there are so many moments where guys are forced to make good plays, guys are forced into making bad decisions. I thought both managers sent guys home that they shouldn't have, desperate, hoping for an offline throw or a drop or something. I thought both managers struggled a little bit with that because, look, I get it. You're running out of arms. You got to force the issue a little bit. And they did, but they paid a dear price for it. And then other times, guys just made great plays. Speaking of Mookie Betts, I mean, that play ranging to his left behind the bag and across his butt. I mean, he just does that routinely.
Yeah.
And we often forget that that's hard as hell to do. And he just does it. And you're like, well, that's just.
Well, there are also a couple outs at third base, too. Last outs of the inning.
Oh, yeah.
Golly, guys.
Isaiah Counter-Falefa.
Yeah.
Now, that was a perfect throw. I mean, that'll hurt your feelings.
And also the Guerrero play. Like, what's the benefit? Well, we all understand it. I'm not even asking rhetorically. Everybody knows there is no benefit. Don't do it.
No,
there's no benefit. Smart.
So an all-timer, and if you're like me and you stayed up, you have my empathy today. Today we shall go through a Tuesday like a zombie. We've done it before. We've stayed up for overtime football games. We've stayed up for overtime hockey games. And last night we stayed up for a marathon baseball game in the World Series, and I have no regrets other than I'm very tired. Hey, such is life. It's Jeff Cameron, Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.